fakes Ritter to the end zone, looking for Pierce. Did he hang on? Yes. Touchdown. Beat the back as I've been around. Here he goes again. Busts free. Jerome Ford down the sideline. Foot race. House call. Touchdown. 79 yards. Big run in the Peach Bowl. This is a big one, too. And it's going to go all the way to the house on the first play from scrimmage.
Bearcat Blitz on the Believe Network. I'm your host, Russ Heltman, joined by my co-host, Neil Meyer. In just a few moments, yours truly from Cincinnati Bearcats on SI, and Neil Meyer from the frontofficenews.com. And we are presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. And we have plenty to talk about on today's show. A win. The Bearcats are on the board in the Big 12, 77-68 victory over Colorado. They proved Neil Meyer and I wrong. They finally beat a top 75 team. So that means the gauntlet I threw down of not picking them to beat a top team until they can do it is lifted. They have finally beaten a top 75 team, their best win of the season so far over Colorado, 77-68 at home to move to 9-8 on the season and 1-3 in the Big 12. We will discuss all of that, including the big showing from Bob Miller, 25 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, 10 of 17 from the floor. He was electric in that game for Cincinnati. And then we will get to the upcoming contests against Iowa State, the number 3 team in the country, a team that has destroyed Cincinnati over the past year. 2-0 against the Bearcats last season by a combined 31-point differential in those contests during the regular season and Big 12 Conference tournament. We'll preview that game and give you a prediction for whether or not Cincinnati can pull off the biggest and best win of the Wes Miller era at home on Saturday afternoon at 2 p.m. Another Peacock game after Peacock was in town on Wednesday night for the Colorado action. Neil Meyer coming up, but first got to tell you about FanDuel Sportsbook, where you can bet on the college football national championship game this coming Monday night. Indiana, a prohibitive favorite, minus 8.5 point favorite on the spread line, minus 340 on the money line, and you can get one of those or one of your bets boosted with the 30% profit boost token from FanDuel Sportsbook for Monday night's national championship game kicking off at 7:30 p.m. We love FanDuel Sportsbook, great presenting sponsor of Bearcat Blitz here on the Believe Network. Talking about all the hoops action coming up after these messages on Bearcat Blitz. Neil, the best win of the season so far for Cincinnati, led by Baba Miller and Mustafa Cham, a formula that probably needs to continue, Neil, especially given the fact that this was another terrible shooting game for Cincinnati from outside. And we're halfway through the season at this point. We're past the Mendoza line. This is a bad shooting team that needs to funnel their offense through the 2 Twin Towers.
Yeah, absolutely, Russ. And I think that's the biggest thing you and I have been saying, along with others as well who cover this team. I know I've said it pretty
months,
frequently.
2 months at least since the Louisville game.
I think I've been saying it pretty frequently on our Bearcat Tip-Off Talk podcast as well as here, that Cincinnati has to play through Mustafa Cham and Baba Miller. And Russ, for maybe the last month or so, when Mustafa Cham has gotten the ball inside and they have funneled the offense through him, it now opens up the game for Baba Miller, who has been Cincinnati's best player throughout this season by far. But you saw it last night when Mustafa Cham was able to step out to the 8 to the 12 foot range and was able to turn around and hit that face-up jumper. Teams are going to have to play Cincinnati differently because of that, because of his ability to not only attack you at the rim, but he now has that mid-range jumper that, from Russ, from what we've seen in the last few games, has been pretty successful in shooting at a high clip. So that was huge for Cincinnati in this matchup. And Russ, I think the difference in this game was, I think maybe the sense of urgency was there. And I know you and I have talked about it on this podcast heading into this one. I've also talked about it with Alex and JT on our other podcast. But the key to this game was for Cincinnati to get out and run and get to the foul line. And what exactly happened on Wednesday night was Cincinnati came out to a 10-0 run after forcing 4 early turnovers for Iowa State. That was huge. You jump out to that lead, and then you go down and you see a season high 35 free throw attempts. That's what you wanted to see. Now, the percentage could be a little bit better, just hovering right around that 68 to 69 percentage. But Cincinnati was finding ways to alter the game and get downhill and attack. And that all started with their defense. And once their defense got those stops, got those steals, got those turnovers, they could get out and run. And they did a lot of it last night. I love that. You get 17 turnovers and then you flip it to 30 points off of those turnovers for Cincinnati. And even Colorado's head coach, Tad Boyle, said it himself. That was the difference maker in this one. It wasn't about that 10-0 jump. There it was Cincinnati capitalizing on the turnovers. That was the biggest takeaway for me in this matchup.
24-2 fast break point advantage for Cincinnati, 35 free throws, as you mentioned, Neil, a season high up against the Colorado team that you and I discussed. If Colorado got to the free throw line consistently, they were going to win the basketball game. They did not do that in this game. Only 15 attempts for the Colorado Buffaloes, including just 4 free throws for their leading scorer, Isaiah Johnson, who has been a free throw maven getting to the line throughout this season. So they did a nice job staying disciplined. They didn't turn the ball over themselves, won the turnover battle 17-10 here, and they overcame a 3 for 16 night from outside. You can do that pretty easily on offense if you're turning teams over 7 more times than you're doing so yourself. You're getting to the basket, like you mentioned, Neil. You don't shoot 35 free throws taking 33s. You shoot 35 free throws getting downhill, like you mentioned, Neil, seeking out contact near the rim and playing with a force and a purpose to get to the basket. I asked Wes Miller after the game, is this something you feel like can translate, can continue? Is this something that you guys are trying to do in terms of limit your threes and get more downhill and get more attempts at the hoop and generate more free throws? And he said they're not necessarily talking about lowering the three-point attempts. If a good three is a good shot, they're going to take it. But the rim pressure kind of emphasis has never been higher. I kind of got that sense from Wes Miller after being as pretty high all season. Neil, I think they could kind of sense that they're not going to be a 35, 40% Miami, Ohio level, 41% three-point shooting team, or Iowa State level, 40% three-point shooting team this season. That may have been the goal entering the campaign, but you got to adjust, you got to pivot, and this is the way. I mean, you got Baba Miller with a really high usage rate in this game for Cincinnati. His usage rate in this one, 33.3%. I need to see it there all season, the rest of the way. Baba Miller needs to be in control of a third of the Bearcats' possessions because he's easily the most impactful player, probably on either end of the floor for Cincinnati as their top guy this season. He was astounding in this one, a team high 14.3 plus box plus minus. And then Sean Abayev gave them good minutes in here as well, Neil, for the first time in a long time. He didn't hit many shots, but he got fouled on his threes, went 4 of 6 from the three-point line. And when he was on the floor, Cincinnati had a 127 offensive rating. That's something that they need to continue to tap into with Sean Abayev and making sure those bench minutes can be palatable. But Neil, it's just one game. It's at home against the Colorado team that was down by as many as 21 points. They did not play a complete game in this contest. They got beat in the second half by Colorado. The Buffaloes won that frame 43-34. They cut through the Bearcats defense pretty easily throughout that frame and were able to hunt their three-point shots pretty well. Shot 5 of 13 from deep. A lot of stuff to continue to clean up if they want to have any chance of not only beating Iowa State at home on Sunday, but keeping it within a single-digit outcome.
Yeah, absolutely, Russ. And I mean, you can build off of Wednesday night for sure, but you also got to think Iowa State is a top 5 team coming into Fifth Third Arena.
Off a loss as well, like Houston.
Not off just a loss, off a 21-point loss.
Right, which was against Kansas, who unranked coming into that game, but clear top 20 talent led by arguably the number 1 freshman and number 1 NBA draft prospect in the country in Darren Peterson, who's been injured, and that's probably the biggest reason why Kansas has not been a top 25 team throughout this season. But I mean, Iowa State, they're not going to be taking anyone
No,
lightly after that loss.
no, absolutely. And TJ Otzelberger, for those coming in to the Iowa State game, that man's crazy. That man's crazy. He's going to have these guys ready. I mean, you see it every time. This is a physical Iowa State team like we have seen in years past. But most importantly, Russ, this is going to be a team that can knock down some shots. So Cincinnati is going to have to defend the 3-point line. If you don't defend the 3-point line here on Saturday, it could be a long day. Because Milan Momcilovic can knock down some big time shots. Taman Lipsey can knock down some big time shots.
We know
Josh
those guys.
Jefferson, big guys who have been around for the last 2-3 years.
A rarity in college basketball to have like what three of their 5 top players returning year over year.
Yeah, and they can knock down some big time shots, but I expect Saturday to be physical, and it's going to be interesting to see how does Cincinnati respond, Russ, because while we're talking about last night's game, it felt like it was a football game at times out there. Like the only foul that was being charged in one segment was a charge. So it was a physical game last night. Now it's going to be interesting to see how does Cincinnati respond. How do the fans come back out and give this team more support than what they did last night? The crowd was great, I believe close to 11,000. How do they come out and give support versus a top 5 opponent in Iowa State? So, Russ, for me, this is a game you can most definitely build on. It was glad to get the monkey off the back and get that first Big 12 victory. But now it's all about how do you build on this? How do you build off this performance? What can you take away? But it's clear to see that this team has to run through the bigs of Mustafa Cham and Baba Miller. And Russ, I believe we were sitting on press row talking about this, that Mustafa Cham has to play 30 minutes a game. And you look down at the final box score and you see he played 30 minutes. Baba Miller played 34. Cincinnati is going to need both of those guys on the floor for 30 to 34 minutes on Saturday if they want any chance of creating an upset here at Fifth Third Arena.
No doubt about that, Neil. And Cham is probably going to have to rebound more than 2 missed shots against Iowa State if they're going to pull off this upset. The entire team has to be rebounding with reckless abandon, the most physicality that they can bring to the table possible, because that's what Iowa State's going to do on the other end. 37 rebounds per game to just 30.2 for their opponent. 30.2 opposing rebounds allowed per game is 13th best in the country. They just mash teams on the boards and box out at a really high level, do not allow teams to get a lot of second chance opportunities. And Cincinnati going to need to take advantage of as many of those second chance opportunities as they can up against an Iowa State team that just lost its first game of the season after starting 16-0 and only having 2 games among those first 16 results in single digit outcomes. So yeah, basically 2 games total that were single digits before the big loss to Kansas on January 13th, 84-63. Real quick before we get to that preview and prediction for Iowa State on Saturday at 2 p.m., tipping off on Peacock inside Fifth Third Arena. Neil, I don't think we're going to see Kirk Kriesa on Saturday once again. He is probably slated to miss his 4th consecutive contest after missing the Colorado game as well. Asked Wes Miller about it after the game. He said he doesn't have a real definitive update on his timeline just yet. He's hopeful that he doesn't think it's going to be months, was his quote. He hopes that it's not going to be weeks, and they're hopeful to get him practicing soon. But Neil, he hasn't practiced in a few weeks since that injury against Houston. And once again, looks like Cincinnati's going to be going with a shortened rotation and a little bit less depth in the backcourt against a very physical backcourt in the Iowa State Cyclones.
Yeah, and Dan Horde also said it on the postgame radio show, too, that it sounds like Kerr told him he hopes to start practicing maybe next week and be back for that Arizona versus Arizona State kind of run where they go on the road there next week. So that could be huge if you can get him back. But obviously in a situation like this, you don't want to rush anybody back either. You want this team to be 100% healthy, but it doesn't sound like it's a season ender. We saw Kerr last night on the sidelines, out throughout warm-ups, being pretty vocal. There was no sling or anything, which is great for a separated shoulder. So sounds like he's attacking the rehab. But Russ, it sounds like they avoided a a season ender for Kerr, but they're definitely going to need him down the stretch when it comes to the back half of the season, Big 12 conference or tournament runs, whatever that might be. They're going to need him. They're going to need it because that depth's going to get battle tested. People are going to start getting fatigued and banged up potentially down the stretch. So the biggest thing right now is if you don't see him out there on Saturday, probably might see him back out there for that game. Maybe that week after. I would say maybe we're looking at more like a week and a half, 2 weeks before we see Kirk Carissa back on the court. If I had to imagine, that's probably our time frame we're looking at.
Yeah, like I would say the Saturday the 24th is a possible point where Kirk could come back. They got the 2-game road trip to Arizona for the Wednesday night action against number 2 team in the country in the net, Arizona, and then they face the number 89 ranked net team, Arizona State, on the 24th. Sometime in that window. I'd be pretty surprised if he's not back before the Dan Skilling's homecoming with Baylor on January 28th. Let's take a quick break and we will get to the Iowa State preview after these messages on Bearcat Blitz. But first, got to tell you about FanDuel Sportsbook. You can make a pick for the Big 12 Conference champion of the 2025-26 season. Nobody really believing in the Bearcats right now. They hold a tie for the worst odds in the entire conference, 400-1. And top of the odds board is Arizona at plus 110, Houston at plus 280, Iowa State at plus 380, and BYU at plus 550. A chance to make your pick there on FanDuel Sportsbook's Big 12 regular season conference winner title odds slate. Get to a quick break and then the Iowa State preview after that, right here on Bearcat Blitz, presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Bearcat Blitz on the Believe Network. Neil, Iowa State coming to town this weekend. Did not play them at home last year. They were at Iowa State and then played them at a neutral site in the conference tournament. Cincinnati enters this game with a very low probability to win the contest against Iowa State on Saturday afternoon. I would be stunned, Neil, if they were able to pull off this upset, but crazier things have happened. Iowa State, a 76.1% ESPN matchup predictor favorite to get this win. They're 16-1 overall to Cincinnati's 9-8 average, one of the best offenses and defenses in the entire country. Iowa State, a ranking of 3rd on KenPom, 16th best offensive rating, 4th best defensive rating. They're right in the middle of tempo this season at 154th overall in adjusted tempo. Cincinnati now up to 56th nationally on KenPom. They are approaching the top 200 on offense, 209th in offensive rating after a nice showing against Colorado, and 8th nationally in defensive rating. So a little bit of a brick fight expected in this game, Neil. Iowa State, as we mentioned, great rebounding team, a very solid offense led by a scorching three-point shooting outfit, 40.3% on the season so far and 37.9% in conference play. Veteran led here. Senior Joshua Jefferson, 17.4 points, 7.8 rebounds, 4.9 assists at 6'8", 220. He's going to mash the boards and be a big problem for Baba Miller to deal with, and what I expect to be the matchup there. And then Milan Momcilovic is probably going to be lined up alongside Mustafa Cham, boxing him out at 17.2 points, 3.3 rebounds, and about an assist a game. He is a scorching three-point shooter, Neil. An absolutely scorching three-point shooter. This man is shooting 53.8% from deep on 6.9 attempts per game. That would be the best mark in the whole country. Neil, this is the best shooter in the country coming to Fifth Third Arena on Saturday afternoon. A massive problem to deal with on that side of the floor for Cincinnati. This Iowa State offense is going to test this top 10 Bearcats defense the most it's been tested all season.
Yeah, Russ, when you think about Iowa State and Milan Momcilovic, When was the last time you've seen a 7-footer shoot 54% roughly from behind the arc? You haven't. You haven't in quite some time. So, he's going to present some problems for Cincinnati, and they're going to have their hands full in this matchup. So, it's going to be interesting to see that. That will probably be the Baba Miller assignment if I had to imagine, just due to his versatility in this matchup and knowing what Iowa State likes to do with Momcilovic in this matchup. But it's going to be a tough and physical challenge on Saturday. And if you remember right, last year, Russ, UC actually played Iowa State very, very well on the road down until the final few minutes per se of that matchup. So it's going to be interesting to see
Wash,
how
rinse, repeat, Neil.
how do they how do they learn from that mistake and attack it last season with so many returners? But Russ, like you mentioned, TJ Otzelberger is going to have this group probably ready to go. And I mean, when you have three guys in college basketball, I mean, Tamin Lipsey, one of the best defenders in all of college basketball, but is also a pure scorer as well in the offensive end. He does so many things well for that offense. And what he really does well, Russ, is he facilitates that offense. I think he's averaging close to 3.5, 4 assists a game, maybe even higher.
5.4
Yeah, I was about to say probably even higher. But
and
what he does,
2.4 steals at that, which is the top mark in the Big 12.
yeah, so he is all over the place in this matchup. So it's going to be interesting to see how does Day Thomas, how does Jizzle James handle Tamin Lipsey and present him and get him off his game a little bit. It's for Cincinnati, the key for this one, Russ, is you're going to have to win the rebounding margin. You're going to have to. Baba Miller is going to have at least double-digit rebounds. Mustafa Cham is going to have close to double-digit rebounds as well. This team is going to have to be physical and crash the boards in this matchup if they want to have any chance of winning. So for me, Russ, I think this game could be a lot closer than people expected, but give me Iowa State 82-72 here at Fifth Third Arena on Saturday.
Right inside the 10-point margin there. Yeah, I just think the depth, the spot that Iowa State is in now, getting woken up after that loss, not wanting to lose two in a row, the lack of history of that happening to TJ Otzelberger's teams over the last two seasons. They tend to bounce back pretty well. And I don't know how Cincinnati's offense is going to do what it did against Colorado consistently enough here against Iowa State. I mean, they still only played one good half of basketball once again on Wednesday night. And Colorado, I believe, entered the game, Neil, with the 128th ranked defensive adjusted rating, adjusted defensive efficiency on Ken Palm. What did I say? Iowa State was like top 5. So that's a complete different animal to handle in this one for a Cincinnati team that, like, if they don't shoot the three ball well, I don't know how they're going to be able to come up with enough possessions positive wise to keep pace with Momcilovic and the rest of this offense. I mean, he's shooting 53.8% from deep on 6.9 attempts. That's number 1 in the country by percentage on that high a volume. They got Jefferson at 37% on 3 attempts. They got Jamarian Bateman at 43 or 42.4% on 3.5 3-point attempts. It's just brutal volume to overcome. On top of that, they're shooting 57% from the floor inside of 3-point range, from 2-point range this season. That's 62nd in the country. There's just so much overwhelming kind of consistency on both ends of the floor here for Cincinnati to have to deal with. I think they'll play a little bit better than people expect. Guessing the betting line will be right around what it was against Colorado, just flipped. I'm guessing Iowa State -8.5 is what we'll be looking at, -8.5 to 10.5 in this game on Saturday. So give me Iowa State to win this one 75-68. I think it's a little bit more of a lower paced game. We get some deeper shot clocks and we get some more fouls in this one that ultimately Cincinnati, like, they're a 65 to 70% free throw shooting team. That's what they are. We are over halfway through the season. You are what you are at this point, and that's what Cincinnati is. I don't think they'll be able to take advantage enough of those free throws to ultimately make it super close at the end. But like Neil, I think they keep it to 10 or within that number and they post a respectable outing, but once again fall to a top-ranked team in the Big 12. A chance for Cincinnati to get their first quad one victory of the season, and they have a pair of those chances over the next two games against Iowa State at home and then traveling on the road to face Arizona. We'll have you covered with all of it right here on Bearcat Blitz. For Neil Meyer, I'm Russ Heltman. This has been a really fun show on the Believe Network, presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Have a great weekend, everybody.
6, Ritter to the end zone, looking for Pierce. Did he hang on? Yes. Touchdown. Back as I've been around. Here he goes again. Busts free. Jerome Ford down the sideline. Foot race. House call. Touchdown. 79 yards. Big run in the Beach Bowl. This is a big one, too.